Hey class. So for today, I'll be doing a piece called "Considering Matthew Shepard." We'll be doing the first movement from that. So let's get started. So one before engaging in the music discussion topic is KWL, which is basically what do you know, what do you want to know, and what did you learn. So to start for considering Matthew Shepard. You can ask the class, well, what do you know about Matthew Shepard? And someone might say, um, some might say, I don't know. When this was introduced to our choir, a lot of people didn't even know who he was. And then someone brought up, oh, he was a boy in the 90s who got killed. Okay, so this got a little more buzz than already 30 seconds ago, because now it's about a boy who died. And then someone also brings up, well, it's about a boy who was gay and got killed because of a hate crime. And so that creates even more buzz. But a lot of people, that's about the furthest we even got as choir about the subject. And so then you can ask, well, what do you want to know? And people will be like, well, I want to know how he died. I want to know what people did in his reaction. And this whole piece goes through that. And the what did you learn? You can ask the class, like, what did you learn just from talking to your peers? And that's a great way to get your class talking to each other, is to open discussions about meaningful works like this. So let's get started with it. It's kind of a longer piece, but it's definitely worth it. This is the first movement from the piece, and it's called Cattle, Horses, Sky, and Grass. All right. So just from the first, the piece is far from over yet, but the first opening movements were, or opening parts, were this piano intro to get the choir on stage and give this vibe of a very happy thing. And so for our next discussion strategy, we're going to be doing think alouds. And so from the first two parts, there was the piano intro and then the choir coming in this big grandiose fashion, saying the word all multiple times. And so you can ask your choir, well, why would the composer think to do that? Why would the composer tell the chorus to sing all several times? That the entire chorus is singing all. And then they're like, maybe it's addressing all of us. Okay. Well, let's see how this is developed. See how the feeling of all can be intertwined with the rest of the music. Let's keep going. right then from there, throughout this last few couple minutes of song, there's been a lot of talk of cattle, horses, sky, and grass. Now that's the title of the piece, so I mean, obviously there would be more attention to it. But why? Why is this talking about cattle, horses, sky, and grass? And you can ask your class that, and they can be like, "Oh, I know," because they can say Matthew Shepard was born in Wyoming, and this text is describing Wyoming. Oh, that's you, and you can develop on that. Well, that's really cool. But if this is a story about someone who got killed, why are they talking about Wyoming? The class would probably be a little confused and be like, I don't know. Why are they talking about Wyoming? It should just get down to the nitty-gritty, all the dark themes. And yet there's this great and happy song about the peaceful fields of Wyoming. So, something to think about. Let's continue on with the song. Well, that was a lot more to take in. So that big chorus feature that we just ended on, the entire chorus is singing, I'm alive. Well, you can ask, so you can bring this to your choir and say, this text is about being alive and enjoying Wyoming. Then you can ask your choir, maybe that's something that Matt was doing before he got killed. Before the text of I'm alive, it was saying, the text was, into the mighty throbbing earth, from which springs life and death and birth. As if there's a whole cycle of life that we're talking about. How everything dies, everything comes back to life, everything lives, and it says, I'm alive. And that's the part they stay on. That's the part that is developed, is that I'm alive. Because when you're alive, you're living, you're developing, you're growing as a human being. And that's something that Matt never had. And now they're looking at this first song with it's telling, it's very beautiful and very happy, and it's talking about the fields of Wyoming, and yet there's already this sense of loss because it's something that Matt never truly got to experience. Now, the last part was saying, these are the things that sway and pass. And it was referencing the cows, the horses, the sky and grass. These are the things that sway and pass. Now you can ask your class, these great things in life, They're great when we experience them, yet they all pass. They come back around in a circle because that's the circle of life, but they all come to pass, just as we are as human beings. And now it makes you think, why should we be so sad about Matt? Everyone dies. What kind of makes more intrigue of what Matt, who he was? Well, maybe his life was cut short, and it was. He was only 20 years old. He's just as old as me. Now you can ask your class, now they're starting to think of, wow, there's so many layers to this whole text. And that's why there's so many layers in all the parts. All the background parts in this last section, they're doing do, 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 kind of setting up this tonality and structure. And there's so many layers on top of each other. And that's also parallel to the number of layers of themes and ideas and philosophies within this piece. Now we're going to move on to the last section. And that's the end of the movement. That's the beginning to this whole oratorio here. Now, this thing takes a long time to get through, but already from the first section, and especially from that ending, you can already tell it's because it got a lot more softer, got a lot more delicate, got a lot more sentimental. And it's a good setup for the rest of the piece because the rest of the piece talks about Matt and his life and how it changed and how the rest of the world was impacted by it. And now there are many different reactions to the rest of the piece. And it'll talk about different types of people and how they reacted to Matt. Now, as a conductor, you know that because you've listened to the piece beforehand. But so bringing into our after singing discussion strategy, you can ask, we're going back to the KWL. You can ask, what did you know? What do you know now? And you can ask the class, what do you know now? And they would say, well, we know that Matt lived in Wyoming and it was really beautiful, but also this piece addresses all. That's where you've heard, in the beginning it said all. And then in the middle, it kept saying, I'm alive, I'm alive. And talking about the grass and trees and wind and sky, all about Wyoming. There's kind of these three different things that are going around. All, I'm alive, Wyoming. And now you already know just from the first song, just from the intro song, what a lot of this piece is about. And then you can ask your class, well, what do you want to know? And they were like, we want to know how some people reacted to Matt's death. We want to know, was Matt thinking about Wyoming when he died? Was Matt? And then you could say, well, what did you learn just from this piece? And you could say, well, Matt, if this story is about Matthew Shepard, and if you're describing Wyoming in the beginning part, you can already say, Matt loved the Wyoming. He loved being alive. And he loved incorporating all of us. And that's what this whole movement is about. It's about how Matt was, how his experiences were in Wyoming. And it was about being alive. And that was taken from him. So that's the open discussion you can have with this piece. It's so multi-layered and so beautiful in its sentiment. And I'm glad as a choir we were able to do it just last month. Sorry, just a few weeks ago. Wow. Yeah, it was a really beautiful time. And now you've already engaging your students in this beautiful work. Yes, it's a long piece of work, but if there's intrigue, if there's passion, if there's compassion, if there's empathy, then any work can be done, and it can be great. So that's what I have for this lesson. Thank you, and have a nice night.